would be nice if there was a one-size-fits-all path to success, wouldn't it? An individual's blueprint for success is as unique as their fingerprints are. I'm Gary Cornwell, president of Galactic Performance Solutions. As someone who didn't come from much, I had to come a long way to get where I am today. In the end, I did find my way, and I want to help you find yours too. I may not have the exact answers for your circumstance and how to build a successful life, but what I know for sure is that you have those answers within yourself. Welcome to Beyond the Blueprint, the podcast that focuses on helping you become the best, brightest, and most financially secure version of yourself. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Blueprint. Today, we're going to talk about how I know that you will succeed. But first, it probably makes sense to define what I'm talking about when I say succeed or success. Success isn't always flashy. Real success is built on small, consistent, and often overlooked behaviors. So we're about to break down the quiet clues that tell me you, yes, you, are on your way to greatness. But before we begin, let's check your homework. Last time, we talked about auditing your relationships. Did you take a moment to reflect on your circle? But more importantly, did you ask yourself, am I someone others need or want in their closest five? I feel confident that many of you did just that. And that very fact, and the fact that you are still here, tells me everything I need to know. Also, did you remember to make your bed? I hope so. So today, we're going to talk about how to spot success in the making. Not the social media highlight reel type of success, but real success. The real kind. The kind of success that sticks, that can be scaled, that sustains over time. That's the kind of success I already see in so many of you. You may not feel it yet, but trust me, it's there. How's the number one way that I know that's true? Because you're here. You're investing your time in growing, learning, auditing your life. You're already doing what 90% of people won't do. That alone tells me that you're going to make it. But there are other clues. There are a lot of myths out in the world about what success is. We're trained to think success is a fancy car, a fancy title, lifestyle snapshots that we see online. But all that is just decoration, and none of it really matters at the end of the day. Being able to realize these decorations and know that they are meaningless in many ways, shapes, and form is an important skill. It's one of the first skills that you should probably learn. Let me tell you about my oldest son and a statement that he made recently that made me extremely proud. First off, to make the statement make more sense, you should know that my sons are both extremely handsome young men. I know I'm probably partial, but it's true. I hear it all the time. Both of my sons are extremely handsome. They both work out constantly and consistently, and it shows. The oldest one, the one that I'm talking about that made the statement, he's the oldest of the two. He's a little bit over 6'2" tall. His arms are about the size of what most people's legs are, and his legs are about the size of what most people's waists are. And there's a body fat percentage that he sustains that is sub 10% on top of that. So he's built well, to put it lightly. To say that he looks good is an understatement. Many times it's like a fitness model's just walking around our house, but enough bragging on the way he looks. I'm very proud of him. He's worked hard to achieve these things because they were goals of his. But what I was really proud of the other day was when he made a statement about social media influencers and how you can't judge yourself against them. He probably can judge himself against them, but even he knows that what they're showing isn't reality. They only show things that have the exact right lighting or the exact right angle. He realizes that. So as you can see, not only is he really well built, but he's extremely smart as well. The best parts of both of my boys is in the ways that they take after their mother. So what is real success? Real success often starts off stage. It shows up in quiet moments, when you're choosing discipline over distraction, when you keep your word to yourself, even when nobody's watching and nobody will know that you broke your word. It's when you get back up without applause from an audience. If you've ever wondered, does what I'm doing even matter? I want you to listen to me very closely. It does. No matter what you feel right now, it matters. You are stacking habits that your future self will celebrate. I know that because you wouldn't be here otherwise. You're building not just wealth, but a life that feels good to live and is worth living. Robert Collier once said, "Success is the sum of small efforts, repeated day in and day out." Or as I like to say, it's not what you do every day, but it's what you do most days. So let me give you 5 signs that'll show you that you're on the right track. I'm going to go through the 5, and then I'll come back and revisit them one-on-one. Number 1, you take ownership, especially when things go wrong. Number 2, you do the boring work consistently. In other words, you have discipline. Number 3, you seek feedback and ask great questions. Number 4, you show up for others. And number 5, you stay grounded even when things go right. Now, if you've listened to these 5 things and you say, well, that's not me, or I don't do that all the time, you don't have to do it all the time. Again, it's not what you do every day. It's what you do most days, and it's what you strive for. As long as you're working towards this, you are building the steps and the foundation for your success. So let's take a look at number 1, taking ownership. I'm going to tell you a story about a young intern named Marcus who worked at a real estate firm. It happens to be a firm that's owned by a real estate broker that I use pretty frequently, whether I'm looking at deals or just getting information, or it's somebody who I've become friends with over time, as well as a business associate. Well, Marcus, young guy, just out of school, like I said, he was an intern. He was a quiet guy, no bravado about him, but he liked to stay late, not to impress other people, but because he wanted to learn. He owned his mistakes and he asked questions of others, especially when others were afraid to ask. Marcus was given the opportunity to do a presentation on a piece of property that was for sale because he had done so well. Unfortunately, the bid didn't go well and he lost the deal. And it was due to poor planning, to be honest. Instead of finger pointing, Marcus requested a full debrief with the senior team. In addition to the debrief within the firm, the broker asked me to give Marcus some feedback as a potential buyer and from a buyer's perspective. Like I mentioned, I'm friendly with the broker, and so I was happy to do it. Marcus was also very eager to listen to what I had to say. I asked him how honest he wanted me to be with him, and he said something that caught my attention immediately. He said, "I would like for you to be completely honest with me. Trust me, you will be no harder on me than I am on myself." That moment itself told me that this guy's going to go far. He wasn't afraid of failure. He was hungry for the lesson inside of the failure. And remember, I've mentioned on a previous episode, failure is not failure. You will fail. It's going to happen, and it's going to happen more than once. But it's only failure if you quit or give up. If you keep going, you shouldn't call it failure. You should call it learning. The attributes that Marcus showed me in that conversation, I've seen over and over in various people in various situations. Before success shows up, and you can see it on the outside, it's growing on the inside. And somebody who has been around people as they're starting to blossom, we can see it almost like it's a flower that's been given water. And I could see that in Marcus. So if you think back to the various situations in your life, if you have ever taken responsibility when it would have been easier to try to assign blame to somebody else, then you're on the same path as Marcus, and you are going to do well. I know you will succeed. You're not just dreaming, you are becoming. In addition to the story on Marcus, I wanted to add multiple times over my life when I've been talking to somebody, whether it was one of my kids or a coworker or somebody that was looking for advice from me, I always like to remind people of what I call the power in saying I'm sorry. When you mess up, own up to it. If you've ever been in a situation in your life when somebody was kind of chewing on you, and I've had this happen with customers. Customer just upset with me about something, and you let them get it off their chest. If you say, you're right, we messed up, or I messed up, or however it was, I'm sorry, all the wind comes out of their sails. What else are you going to do? You've admitted it. You made a mistake. Now it's going to be, what are you going to do to fix it? And how are you going to keep at least that same mistake from happening again? There is extreme amount of power in I'm sorry, I admit it, it was my fault, and I'm going to fix it. You should always remember that. And you should always use it when it's proper and when it's necessary. So again, if you're looking back, whether it's schoolwork, something happened at work, something happened in a relationship of yours, if you've ever said, that one's on me, then you are on the right path to success. And when I say success, I'm talking about financial success, emotional success, life success. It will get you where you want to go. Number one's a big one. Take ownership, especially when things go wrong. So number two, as a reminder, was you do the boring work and you do it consistently. This comes back to discipline. And we've talked about discipline in previous episodes several times, because discipline is what will be there when motivation fails you. It will be your saving grace when motivation fails you. You must figure out how you're going to be disciplined. One of my favorite quotes is by Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson once said, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it. And I can't picture any better way of putting it. You don't have to like it. You probably won't like some things, but you need to approach it like you have to do it, so you better do it like you love it. Success lives in the repetition. So if you've shown up when nobody else noticed and nobody else was even looking, you're already ahead of the game. A lot of what we're talking about in the keys and the stepstones to success have to do with, are you doing what's right when nobody's looking? Because if you are, there's no way that you cannot be successful. Conversely, if you're only doing the right things when somebody is looking, you might want to reevaluate what your motivation is. And you might want to reevaluate what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Number three, as a reminder, number three is you seek feedback and you ask great questions. That story earlier about Marcus could fall into this as well. He wanted to know what went wrong. And he wanted to know from other people that were more seasoned than he is in that particular situation. And I want to touch on something really quickly. When I say more seasoned in that particular situation, just because you're getting advice or guidance from somebody doesn't mean that the person you're getting it from is better than you or smarter than you or anything in that realm of thinking. It just means they have more exposure and they have more experience in that particular situation than you do. There are probably things that you could teach that person about areas that you have more expertise in. So never make the mistake of, well, this person's head and shoulders above me in everything. That's just simply not true. If you're listening to this podcast, I guarantee you there are things I could teach you, but I can also guarantee you there are things that you could teach me. So never be afraid to look for feedback, to ask the right questions, because that's only going to better you. It doesn't make you look bad to do that. As a matter of fact, it makes you look bad to do the opposite. So if you're the person who's always following up after meetings saying, what could I have done better? You're on your way. If you're humble enough to ask, you're brave enough to grow. That's rare, especially these days, but it's also extremely powerful. Seek feedback. Even when things go right, seek how you could have done it better, you could have done it faster, or it could have had a better, more profitable outcome. And when I say profitable, again, I'm not just talking about money. It could be in a romantic relationship, in a family relationship, a friendship. There is a return on everything that you do. Speaking of a return on everything that you do, as a reminder, number 4 is you show up for others. Showing up for others is extremely important. So if you're the guy or the lady who volunteers to help with a launch that you're not even supposed to be involved with, and it's just because you're wanting to support a friend or a coworker, that's the kind of person that I would want you to strive to be. If you've ever made someone else's win feel like your own to yourself, you're the kind of leader that people will remember. And also, remind yourself consistently and constantly that nobody is a success completely on their own. Show up for others so that they'll show up for you when the time is right and when it's needed, even if you don't know that it's needed. A lot of times, people who are self-starters like you are, that are driven like you are, we have a hard time either seeking out or asking for help from others. But if we've surrounded ourselves with the right people, like in the previous episode, Show Me Your Friends, I'll Show You Your Future, they will show up because they'll know that the time is right. Number 5, and this is a big one also, you stay grounded even when things go right. And that might sound weird, but let me say it again. You stay grounded even when things go right. Because just like things will go wrong, things will go right. And when they do, don't let yourself get too pumped up about it. Enjoy the success, revel in something positive happening, but don't make the mistake of thinking it's forever. One success doesn't mean that you're done. You haven't completed anything. You've just succeeded in that particular task. So stay grounded even when things go right, because things are going wrong, things will go right, but this too shall pass. And what I mean by that is whether it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing, this too shall pass. Neither good nor bad will last forever. You're going to have a series of both in your life. So stay grounded in your success, just like you stay focused in your failures. And if you do both of those things, you will stay hungry. And I can assure you, if you're still hungry, even after you win, you're unstoppable. Too many people make the mistake of thinking, oh, I've made it. I've hit the pinnacle of what I was trying to do. I promise you getting there is easier than staying there. So you have to stay focused and you have to stay grounded even when things go right. And you will. So let's talk about what success isn't. I mentioned earlier about the story about my oldest son and the influencers. So it is worse today than ever. I call it the influencer trap. So these guys will do videos or whatever. They've got a lot of times, the house they're in, they don't own it. They've rented it. They've rented the car. They have no equity in either one of those things. As a matter of fact, it's a liability because they had to come out of pocket to rent it and pay for it for that day or that week or however long it was. So a lot of the things that they're showing you online isn't real. Think about it this way. A lot of times you watch the award shows. They've got a red carpet at all of them now. And everybody wants to know, not everybody, because I assure you I don't want to know, but lots of people want to know, what are they wearing? What does their outfit look like? What is their jewelry going to be? Most of the time, they were dressed by somebody who wanted to get promotions for their outerwear, whatever you want to call it, their gowns for the night, their evening gowns or their tuxedos or whatever. They're not owned by the people who are wearing them. The jewelry, most of the time, is not owned by the person that's wearing it. It's loaned to them to put on appearance. But you know what? A lot of people that don't have the money to do it, they will borrow to go and get those things that they see on the red carpet. That's not success for them, and it's not success for, I guess it's success for them because they've conned some people into spending money they don't have to try to keep up with a lifestyle that is a lie. I don't know if you've ever paid attention to or heard stories or read articles about people who are extremely high earners. Well, we could go back to really sports stars. It happens to more often than actors. Really, really high earners. Let's look at basketball players or football players or baseball players, any sport. And I'm talking about in the US. I'm sure it happens in other countries as well. I just don't know as much about sports there. Think about how many of them. I mentioned Mike Tyson earlier. I have my ups and downs with Mike Tyson. There's a lot of things about him I like. There's a lot of things about him I don't like. And not that he cares, but it's interesting to me that Mike Tyson made hundreds of millions of dollars when he was fighting before he retired from his professional career. I know he fought recently, but before he retired from his professional career, he literally made hundreds of millions of dollars. And he was broke. And he was broke because he spent it all trying to look successful. And to me, honestly, he was trying to fill a hole inside of him that he didn't know how to fill. So he tried to use money. And the next thing you know, he's broke. And then he ends up fighting Jake Paul to try to earn money on top of other things. I'm not questioning anything that anybody does in order to make a living. My point to that is he was trying to chase something that wasn't real. And that is not true success, in my opinion. In my opinion, you don't need to look successful to be successful. The foundation that you're building through discipline, consistency, reflection, it's stronger than any filter on Instagram. Your foundation is strong, that you're building, and the way you're building it is stronger than all of those filters combined. Let me take a few minutes to tell you a story about somebody that I encountered in my early 20s. So in my early 20s, for a short period, I had a job. I didn't enjoy it much, but it was a job that paid the bills, and I learned a lot from it. The reason I didn't enjoy it tremendously is I got to the point where I didn't believe in, for the most part, what it was that we were selling. In this instance, though, in this story that I'm about to tell you, this guy won. He won in life in a lot of different ways. And so anyway, I was young. In some ways, I didn't know everything about what was going on. I was naive in some senses, but I had a positive outlook on things. And so what we were selling at this company, this was prior to Sam's Club and some of those places like that. Costco, they may have existed back then, but there weren't too many of them if they did. And I didn't even know about them. Most people I don't think knew about them. And so what we were doing in this company is we were selling memberships to be able to buy certain products, not every product, but certain products at wholesale rather than retail. So some of those products were home goods and different things like that. The home goods are the thing that I remember the most because it plays into this story. So I was at work one day. People would come in. We would show them. They'd have to do their shopping in these catalogs. There were different places, different locations that people could go to look at these catalogs. This was prior to internet. And so people would come in, and the cost of the membership, I think it was like $899. So that was extremely expensive for that area of time, especially knowing that you had to come back in and you had to flip through catalogs in order to select the things that you were going to purchase. And I was sitting there, and there were various different levels of amounts that you could sign up for. Ultimately, it was $899 no matter what, but you could pay it out over time. You could pay cash for it, all these kinds of things. And our goal, what we were taught to do, was to get somebody to come in, and they were going to sign up for a contract, and we needed to get $1 minimum from them in order to make that contract binding. And then they were locked into that contract, even if they never used it one time. That's part of the reason I didn't like it. And it's a big part of the reason that I ended up leaving, amongst other things. But anyway, it was my job to sell these things amongst several other people. There was probably, 8 or 10 of us. That's what we did all day, every day. People would come in. We would get them to come in they got things in the mail that said that they won either money or a camera. They won something if they come in and listen to us. They always won the camera. The camera was a cheap little nothing camera that cost really nothing for the company that I was working for. So I don't want to call it a bait and switch because you did get what you were told you were going to get. It didn't have a lot of value. Anyway, man comes in. He is a small man. He's not dirty, but he's wearing overalls that are stained. So they're clean stained, if that makes any sense. He's got a short haircut, doesn't really look combed too much. And he walked in the door, and several people who were also supposed to be selling this stuff just kind of turned around and looked the other way or walked past him or didn't acknowledge the fact that he was there. So because of the way that I grew up, I had been around people that looked like him my whole youth, my whole young life, and really my whole life now even. So I walked up and stuck out my hand and introduced myself to him, and he shook my hand, and I still remember today. He said, "Young man, my name is Squat." So I said, "Squat?" And he said, "Yes." He sits down at my table. His real name wasn't Squat. That's what everybody called him, but that's what he preferred to go by. Like I said, he wasn't a big man. So I had no preconceived notions to whether he was going to want to do this or not do this, but I knew he deserved the respect that anybody else that walked in that door would get, no matter if he was wearing stained overalls or not. So I walked through the presentation, and I get to the end, and I give him the offering and ask him, which level would you like to sign up at? And he said, well, I'll just pay cash. That part did stun me a little bit because hardly anybody ever paid cash. And so he said, no, I'll pay cash. And I said, well, it's $8.99 or whatever the magic number was. So this man, to me at the time, he was an older man. He was probably not too much older than I am right now at the time, though. He reached into the front pocket of his overalls and he pulled out a wad of $100 bills. And he thumbed off 9 $100 bills and handed them over to me and asked me where he needed to sign on the contract. I didn't even have the contract ready, and I had 900 crisp $100 bills in my hand. So we got the contract written up pretty quickly, and he signed it. And when he signed it, even his signature was really not that legible. And so I asked him, we got him his dollar change back. So he wanted it. He wanted to make sure he was getting his dollar back. So we got him his dollar in cash and gave it back to him. That was a good day for me because I got paid commission, and I got paid commission as soon as it happened. So I think I went out to dinner that night. But the important part of the story was that he sat down. He didn't even leave the building. His wife was with him. She didn't say a whole lot during the first part, but his wife was with him. She was a smaller lady as well. They didn't leave the building after he signed the contract. He said, when does it go into effect? I said, as soon as you sign it, it's effective. You've paid for it. You're good to go. He went and sat down at a table and started flipping through those books with his wife. And what I didn't know about Squat when he walked into that room, and what nobody else knew about Squat either, and they didn't care to ask. They weren't curious enough about the man who walked in with the stained overalls, is that Squat owned about 50 rent houses. None of them were in great condition, but they were all houses that he leased out. He owned a good portion of that entire city. The people who lived there knew exactly who he was. He owned some commercial buildings that people had businesses in, but he owned about 50 rent houses. And his deal was, if you rented from him, it was completely furnished. So Squat and his wife sat down, and for the first time, were able to buy onesie, twosie items like, I like this couch and I want this other one and I like this and this and that. That man sat there and outfitted multiple houses before he left the building. And when he got up to leave after he placed his order, he looked at me and he said, I want you to know that I saved 5 times what I just paid for that membership. So for me, it was worth it. What I got out of it more than the commission that I got paid that day was realizing that success doesn't always look the same. If you were to see Squat right now, you probably wouldn't think that he had 2 nickels to rub together. But he had a whole lot of nickels, and a whole lot of dimes, and a whole lot of dollars, and a whole lot of hundreds. He was an extremely successful person. And not only that, but the way he was interacting with his wife when they were going through those catalogs, Squat was a success in life, not just in business. So success doesn't have a look. It certainly isn't just a Ferrari with no top on it, or 1,000 other things that people would look at as being successful or would say looks like success. Chasing the look of success, using an analogy from Squat, chasing the look of success would be like trying to decorate a house that didn't have a foundation. That would be one silly thing to do. So your success that you're building now, your foundation that you're building right now with all the things that you do, will lead to success. It's your choice whether you want it to look flashy or not. My point to all of this is you don't have to look flashy. And if you're okay not looking flashy, you'll get successful faster and you'll be successful longer. And in many ways, depending on how you choose to approach it, you'll have a higher level of success. I've interviewed a lot of people in my life. I've worked with a lot of people. I've had a lot of people that reported to me throughout the course of my life. And so there are a lot of commonalities that I look for, and that if I recognize them in somebody, I can almost tell that they're a future success story. So what are those things? Well, here's a list of a few. Curiosity, follow through, humility. Humility is a big one. Work ethic. Now, when I say work ethic, I don't want you to have to work hard. Somebody who strives to work smarter rather than harder is fantastic. But doing it because you want to be more productive, doing it because you want to be more productive is the right reason to work smarter rather than harder. Because you're lazy, that's the wrong reason to do it. So I look for people that are curious, that have follow through, humility, a great work ethic. If they can work smarter rather than harder, that's great, but you can't be lazy. I've also been very fortunate in my life to receive a lot of advice from a lot of different people and from a lot of different backgrounds. And I truly believe that getting advice or insight, even if it's not straight up advice, but insight from people with varied backgrounds that come from different places, that are at different places in their life, you add all those things together and you're going to have a better roadmap than if you get everything from one person. With that being said, I want you to also listen to me. Don't just listen to me when I say this is what I meant. Don't just get your information from me. Go find other things that make sense to you that will add to what I'm trying to tell you. I don't have all the answers. You shouldn't expect to get all the answers from any one person, and you should not expect to have all the answers. So go get advice, get insight from multiple different places. I've been extremely lucky, as I mentioned, and there are several things that I wish I knew when I was younger that I feel like I know now. I'm almost positive that there are things that I'll know in the future that I wish I knew now. Some of those things are, you should work as hard at building systems as you are at chasing goals. So what does that mean, building systems? I mentioned in a previous episode that I have a formula that my family follows when we're going to invest in something. And I also mentioned in that episode that I wasn't going to tell you what my formula was. It's because I can't, not because I'm trying to keep secrets. I can tell you what it is. It would be very hard unless we were having a one-on-one conversation for me to explain to you why the formula is the way it is for me. Because, as I mentioned before, risk tolerances are different, and access to things are different for everybody. There are people that I know that have access to things that I don't, and vice versa. I have access to things that they don't. So I can't necessarily give you this straight up formula, but having that formula is a part of the process. So I can't just have the goal. I want X, Y, Z, whether that's a certain amount of money or a certain amount of assets or a certain type of investments. I have to have the process to get there. And the process, hopefully, is something that is repeatable. Because if it's not repeatable, it may be a process, but if you have to reinvent the wheel every time, that makes life much more difficult. So I wish I knew that I should work as hard at building systems or processes as chasing goals. Now you got to have the goals and you got to write the goals down. And I know you're doing this, right? Write down your goals. No matter what, write down your goals. You can wad up the piece of paper and throw it in the trash afterwards, but write it down. You got to fall in love with boring routines. Whatever the routine is that gets you where that next step, you got to remember, you got to break things down into bite-sized pieces. When you're planning on something, it's not going from A to Z. You've got to go B, C, D, E, F. You got to go all the way through. And maybe some of those letters are jumbled together or are smashed together, but you can't go from beginning to success all in one step. You got multiple steps, and you have to plan them out and develop routines that will get you there. So when I say routines, it's not doing the same thing over and over again. It might be, but it's working towards a process. I have my next year's goals as far as where I want to be financially, as far as what our real estate portfolio looks like. I do that at a minimum of 3 months prior. I try to do it 6 months prior. And then I start doing things that are routines to get us into that place. And the goals are not always the same every year. They're certainly not the same every year. They change every year. But I have to have goals. And what do I do with the goals when I get them? I write them down. This next one's huge. This next one was really hard for me, and it still is. Be aggressively patient. It's not going to happen overnight. Every now and then lightning strikes and something big happens, and it happens quick, but it's usually going to take time. So you have to be patient. And it's not just a little patient. You have to be aggressively patient. And remember that being aggressively patient will get you where you want to be. Surround yourself with people who challenge your excuses, not just your ideas. You need people that are going to hold you accountable. Wherever you find those people is up to you. And I hope those people are a part of your core 5. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back and listen to the previous episode. So in the things that we've talked about in this episode, even if you don't think you're that yet, you don't see it in yourself yet, if that's what you want to be, if you're the kind of person who wants to grow, who's willing to listen and reflect, and you're willing to do the work, you're exactly the kind of person that changes the game. I see you, and I believe in where you're going. You need other people to see it in you as well. So what signs are you giving off right now that point towards the future success that you're working for and that you will succeed? Make sure that people are seeing that success in you. So here's this episode's homework. Between now and the next time we get together, I want you to write down 3 things that you're doing today. No matter how small, no matter how insignificant you might think it is, or how big you think it is, I want you to write down 3 things that you're doing today that your future self will thank you for. And if you can't come up with the 3 things that you're doing that your future self will thank you for, start thinking about the 3 things that you can start today and start doing that your future self will thank you for. I have a feeling you're doing more than you give yourself credit for. That's one of the things about people like you and me. We tend to believe that we're not working hard enough. Well, you're doing a lot. And part of what you're doing is just paying attention right now. And that is a big reason that I know that you're going to be successful. If you want to take it a step further, share one of those things with a friend. If you don't want to share it with a friend, say it out loud. Write them down. There's power in writing things down. Say it out loud. Declare it. Claim it. Because when you speak it, you step into it. Look at yourself in the mirror when you do it as well. Tell yourself that you know that your future self is going to be proud of you and proud of the things that you're doing this very moment. With that being said, you're already a success. Success may not always feel exciting, but if you're putting in the quiet work, somebody out there already sees your potential. I see it, and I'm betting on you. In the next episode of Beyond the Blueprint, we're going to be diving into overcoming adversity because it's going to happen. How you deal with it will determine your future. Until next time, work hard, be kind to one another, and believe in yourself. I believe in you. Write that down. Thanks so much for listening. Please follow our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And write us a review. We'd love to get your feedback. Beyond the Blueprint is sponsored by Galactic Performance Solutions. It's written and researched by yours truly, Gary Cornwell. Producing and editing is done by the team at Resonate Recordings. Until next time, remember, you do have the answers. You just have to make the effort to find them. I believe in you.